Okay, let's get started. So we want to start with the trill exercises. Start with the trill exercises. Did everybody get that out? You should also
That
have a
one.
metronome. You should have a metronome nearby.
No.
Okay, make sure that you're muted. We're going to be muted most of the time. Mute yourself, because we can't all play together, as we know from many conversations online. There is no good software yet for allowing people to play simultaneously. So go ahead and make sure that you're muted. I will ask people if they'd like to demonstrate things, and then they can unmute. You don't have to demonstrate. Nobody has to demonstrate. Sometimes we're having a good day, sometimes we're not. So again, whatever. All right, so looking at the first one, which is just from D to E flat. This is the beginning of an exercise I just made up that works every finger of your hand, and you'll discover some fingers are better than others. They're just more coordinated, they're more independent, some are stronger, some are weaker, and we want to sort of warm them up because trills can add a lot to a piece. And I had to ask myself, why do they even put trills in pieces? Why does this even exist as a thing? And in general, it's to increase excitement, especially driving towards a cadence. It's just a way of making things a little more exciting because we want to be able to trill quickly and show this energy movement moving forward in the piece. And that's basically what a trill is for. Not always, but a lot of times that's exactly what the trill is for. So we want to be able to control the speed of our fingers because we don't just go super fast immediately. There are subtle ways of shaping the speed of the trill that make it even more interesting. Okay, so everybody, you'll notice we're looking at, again, trill exercises, the top one, which goes from D to E flat. So we got a little right hand little finger workout here. You'll see there's a tempo range. If you get up to 72 with 8 to a beat, that is a fast trill. Maybe you can go a little faster, but that's certainly an acceptable tempo for a trill. Now, you're going to be able to go faster than that on just 16th notes, but I'm telling you, when you get to those eighths, that's pretty quick. So start with a tempo that you think you can do. I would suggest, 63, somewhere around in there, maybe 60. Just start and see what works for you. And it also is going to vary from finger to finger. Okay, go ahead and try the first one. Turn on your metronome. Go ahead and try the first one.
So this is meant to be 8 notes per beat or 4?
When you get to the end, I mean, there's on the third line, the second line, you go to 8.
Got it.
Right. So you start with 4s, but then you get faster. Okay, so again, I'm just watching to see if it looks like most people are finished. I mean, that's the only way I can guess about this. So when you get to the measure with the 5s, that's kind of tricky because you're going to end up on the second beat and the fourth beat on the upper note of that trill. So you really want to make sure that you are in control of your fingers and that when you get to the second beat and the fourth beat that you are confident you are actually on the upper note of that trill. I found the 5s, I tend to go too fast. I wanted to go a little faster than 5s. Now, as you played through it, you'll see I did a 4 and then a 5 and then a 6 and then I jumped to 8. So what happened to 7, you might ask? And I'll tell you, when I was developing this little exercise, I had a really hard time doing 7. I meant it. It was distracting from the problem at hand, and it was just so difficult that I thought I'm going to get stuck there. And I really wanted, so I just decided to eliminate the 7 altogether. But so the 5 is tricky enough. 7 was that much more difficult. So, but 8, we can do 2 groups of 4. It's just a matter of speed. So your goal is to get up to 72. If you can get up to 8 notes at 72, then that's a reasonable speed for a trill. Now, again, if you want to go faster, but 72 is a good goal. So then look down at measure 6. Looking down at measure 6. So this little exercise works every finger. It's like a trill warm-up. And what you're going to discover is that some fingers trill much better than others, and you need to identify which those are. Which ones, I have no problem with those, don't need to work on those, but other ones like 4th fingers, for example, do not trill so easily, especially if other fingers are also down on that note. Okay, so you're going to take the pattern of D to E natural, but you're going to do the pattern from measure 1. Right? So you do a 4 and then a 5 and then a 6 and then an 8. Okay, do D to E natural. Okay, Evelyn, are you having a problem? Unmute yourself. Are you okay? All right. You can unmute yourself if you want. All right.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
I've had this problem for years. It's moving my wrist too much. Of course, I strain my wrist now. That doesn't help. But going from, let's see. Now I've forgotten what it is. I think it's E and D.
You mean the first one we're doing there at measure 6?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Okay, so we do want to just move one finger, but you're saying both of them are moving?
Well, yeah, going from D to E, I'm moving my wrist. I mean.
Okay, you're moving your wrist. Okay, so the hand is basically in 3 sections. These 3 fingers like to be together. This is independent, this is independent. So when we're playing this D to E trill, we've got the little finger is up, the 3 fingers, these 3 start down, and then this one has to wiggle. The hand is not built to do that easily. This is not a normal human movement. So what we're trying to do is figure out, for Karen, how to minimize the movement. Is it rocking from side to side? What is it doing? It's behind the music stand.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's going up and down? Okay.
Yeah.
So I would suggest, away from the flute, put your fingers on your hand and try that same movement. Again, this is going to be up. They start down and then that 4th finger moves. See if you can get yourself to isolate. Is your wrist still moving? Boy, you've got a lot of movement going on there.
Yeah, I do.
I would spend a little bit of time trying to figure out how to isolate that. And if you can't, I would say, oh well.
Well, I'm an amateur, that's why.
I mean, if you do too much work with the 4th finger, you're going to end up like Schumann, a pianist and composer who was so annoyed at how stupid his 4th finger was. He devised a rubber band contraption to work on his finger, and he ended up giving himself such bad tendonitis, he had to completely stop playing. So we don't want to go there. So it may be that your wrist is just going to move, but I would suggest get away from the flute, because as soon as you see the flute, you're going to automatically want to do this. Why? Okay, can you lift it we're sort of digressing, but you all might have a similar problem, and you have to break it down into smaller pieces to figure out problems. If
Okay.
you have your little finger down, will it move independently?
My little finger down.
Yeah, so I mean, we're not going to get, I don't care right now. Will it move?
Yeah, that's a little better. That minimizes it a little bit. So
Okay,
if it doesn't interfere with the sound, then I guess that's a good thing.
right. The thing is that will give us an E flat, of course. I mean, it's not going to give us an E natural if you have your little finger down, but maybe you could find some way to anchor that little finger somehow. I don't know. Again, when you're solving problems, everybody's problems are unique, and you have to be your problem solver, your own personal problem solver. And okay, how can
Yeah.
I do a couple of steps back from this? How can I simplify what's going on so I can identify it in a more exact way? Okay. All right. So we're going on. Sorry, that was a
No,
transgression. What?
that's good. Thank you.
That's not what I meant. But
Thank you.
digression. Oh God, my brain is going away. Um, it was a digression, but again, it's what we all have to do for ourselves. You don't always have a teacher that you can call up and say, you know, my finger's doing this, or I'm having trouble with that. You've got to figure it out yourself as much as you can. Okay, going on. E to F. Everybody do E to F. This should be an easy one. E to F. Okay, now try E to F sharp. Everybody go for E to F sharp. And we know that when we trill E to F sharp, you just lift your fingering E and you just lift your index finger, right? That's really the only way to do it. Okay, so this one isn't so bad. The left index fingers in general are probably the most coordinated finger we have. So that one should be an easy one. Okay, now let's try F sharp to G. Here's that fourth finger again, but now the other fingers are up, but the little finger is down. Try F sharp to G. Okay, so we're going 4, 5, 6, take a breath, 8. Okay, how many people found that was not as easy as the index finger, but it was okay? You can just raise your hand. It was okay, or a thumbs up, whatever. Okay, let's try G to A flat now. Okay, so I find that G to A flat, my little finger, doesn't feel quite as comfortable as when I'm doing D to E flat with the little finger on my right hand. Somehow doing E to A flat is just not quite as easy. And I think it's partly because we have to have our left hand sort of, you know, twisted in a funny way. And I think that's one of the reasons. We have to be especially careful on this trill that the little finger doesn't go up too high. So you can watch yourself in a mirror or in a Zoom screen and look at your little finger because it has a tendency to want to pop up. If your fingers pop up when you're trying to play a passage, it's because you're got too much tension and you're squeezing the finger too hard, you're putting the finger down too hard. And it's sort of like a spring. You're loading a spring, and when you release it, it wants to pop up. So it's one indication that you're actually pressing too hard into the flute if your little finger or any finger is going up too high when you're playing.
I have a
Okay, so
question.
that was, does somebody want to try G to A flat for us? Somebody want to volunteer to play G to A flat, just so we can hear?
I have a quick question. Sorry.
Okay.
So when you're fingering like the A flat, does your pinky have to be like straight or curved?
Ah, good question. So, where does it naturally want to fall? And I'm looking at mine. It's definitely not as curved as the other fingers on the left hand, but it's not like that either. So you want to watch what's going on with this knuckle. If that knuckle is flattened, you're pushing too hard. There should be a slight curve of that finger. Again, there would be straight. There would be slightly curved. So it's that middle knuckle there. What's going on with that? You don't want to look like this, because then you end up with this stick thing. Whereas if you've got it curved, you have more control over it. Again, if you push down too hard, that's when it's going to straighten out on you, and you don't want that. Okay, good question. All right, now we're trying A flat to A natural. Okay, so you have two choices for this, A flat to A natural. You can either trill both fingers, the fourth finger and the little finger, or you leave the little finger down and just trill the fourth finger. Those are the two options. It's a little tricky to coordinate two keys at exactly the same time, but it's also tricky to trill your fourth finger with the other fingers down. So pick your poison. Okay, how many people think that trilling both keys works better for them? How many people like both keys? Okay, just a few. Okay, some. Okay, how many people think just trilling one key works better? Okay, yeah, okay. I personally am the one key person myself, but it doesn't matter. If the two key one works, is there a difference in the intonation is the biggest question. It's very, very slightly flat. So little that it really doesn't matter. So either fingering is acceptable. There are some other trill fingerings that we discover that, you know, an alternate fingering might be easier to play, but it's not as well in tune, so we have to decide which one we want to use. Okay, going on, G to A. This should be an easy one. Okay, good. This should be easy. Noreen, would you play that for us? See, I pick on people I know. Noreen, and she also plays really well. Noreen, play this for us.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay, so the five, you really have to think about the five, don't you? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it's tough for me to, I have my little dalla piccola dalla, but it doesn't, you know, my brain wasn't.
That's okay. But again, I found the 5 tricky. I wanted to go a little bit too fast. The 6, I think, is easier in comparison.
I have a question about this.
Yes, Lydia?
My small finger
Yeah.
sticks right up when I do this, and I don't like it.
Okay, so it's tension. You're putting tension in your hand. So as you're playing this trill or anything else that you might find where a finger is doing something you don't want it to do, look in a mirror. Do the pattern slowly and try to figure out how you talk to the problem child. Right?
Okay.
Okay, little finger. So right now we're trilling G to A, right? Easy. What is that little finger? What are you doing?
Yeah, just up.
Yeah, and it shouldn't. This is very common with lots of players. Is for some reason that little finger wants to go, and that means it's tense, and it means that when you do have to play the A flat key, you're probably going to be late because it's too far away. It's just too far away from the key. But again, whenever there's a problem, especially a fingering thing, do it slowly and watch your fingers in the mirror.
Okay, thank
And
you.
then that will give you a more immediate feedback. I mean, it's a challenge that our fingers are not really in our direct line of sight. Unlike clarinet players, right? It's right down there. So the mirror becomes your friend, and you just do it. You start slowly, and you figure out, little finger, hello. Can you please relax? Now, how much is it going to move naturally? It wants to, I think, go with the G finger. It's hard to isolate it. You could hold on to your finger and move that. I don't think it's so bad if it moves up and down a little bit. I don't think we can expect it to remain stationary. Again, it wants to be with the other fingers, that little finger. Okay, let's go on. You can mute yourselves back again. Now we're doing A to B. So this is another pretty easy one. This one should be easy for people. Now, you could also, if you wanted to, watch and see what your 4th finger and your little finger are doing. They're not going to want to move as much as that little finger was wanting to move while the 4th finger was moving. So those other fingers should be fairly well curved over their keys. They should not be moving around. They should not be moving sympathetic movement, if you want to think of it that way. They shouldn't be doing any more than the finger that's actually moving. Okay, going on B to C. Okay, and go on to C to D flat, which is that left index finger, which is sort of all crooked up. C to D flat. Okay, all this is these measures 6 through 15. It's just an exercise that gets every finger its chance to be the trill finger. And you want to find out which of my fingers are working great, no problem, and which fingers are an issue. Or perhaps a particular pattern is difficult. Okay, we're going on to common tricky trills. So the first one, C to D, is the first trill key. I think everybody knows that. The problem with this is it's so easy to play, we go too fast. It's just so easy. Okay, everybody try that one in our pattern of 4, 5, 6, and 8. Okay, again, this one is really easy. The problem is that we have to learn how to control the speed. It wants to go too fast. And there are some times when we actually want to start slowly and then go faster, which is what we're going to get to as soon as we get to the art of the trill page. All right, next octave up, C to D, it's the trill key closest to the E flat key. Everybody do that one. Okay, again, some people are going to find them easy, some people are going to find them hard. You're just figuring out what's my particular situation. All right, A flat to B flat, got to have, well, it's easiest to do it with your thumb B flat key on. You're going to be trilling the same fingering whether you use the 2 and 2 B flat or the thumb B flat. Most of the time you want to pick the thumb B flat trill. Chances are it's a piece with flats. Anyway, you're going to have your thumb B flat on. Okay, everybody do A flat to B flat. Okay, so you just trill the middle finger. Just trill your middle finger. That's all you need to do. Left hand middle finger. That's all you need. Lauren, I saw you doing, really, that's hard. What you were doing was hard. Just the middle finger, Lauren. Okay, I think I can't see everybody's, but I'm assuming that everybody was just trilling the middle finger. It's much harder to coordinate 2 fingers. She was doing all 3 fingers. Okay, D to E natural. D to E natural. The question is, what's going on with my left index finger in this trill? Because it should be up on D, but it should be down on E natural. So which one do I use? And the answer is you start with the D, with it up, and then you just trill that right hand 4th finger and you just leave your the left hand index up. So we're trilling the right hand 4th finger to get from D to E, and that left index stays up. This is a really common trill. It's not so easy to do. It's not so easy to do, again, because the hand wasn't built to do what we're asking it to do.
Question.
Yep. Yes, Erica.
Hi. When I leave my finger up on the D and go to the E, it will not come out on this bass.
Okay, so if it won't come out on the bass, then you're going to have to leave your left index down.
Yeah, then that works.
Then that works. So she's going to, because on bass, the E is more fragile.
Yeah.
Than it is on C flute, and so you're going to have to leave it down if it doesn't work on yours. I can say it works on my bass, doesn't work on her bass, so she's going to have to leave it down. But you want to know the standard trill fingering is, and the reason on the C flute, if you put that left index down, you hear that it clouds the sound a lot. It's just not as clean a sound if that left index is down when you're trilling from D to E. Okay, going B to C sharp. Next line, measure 20, B to C sharp. Okay, this is, I think, the hardest trill on the flute, is to try to get both of those fingers, this is the left hand thumb and index, to get those 2 coordinated. One can, for, I don't even know how much money, a couple $100, you can get a B to C sharp trill on a C flute. You can get a B to C sharp trill just for this interval in this octave. The next octave up, one of the trill keys does actually work. But for here, there is no trill key that works unless you spend the extra dough to get a B to C sharp trill. Does anybody have a B to C sharp trill on their flute?
I do.
Jane does. Okay, and it does make, it's just for this trill.
Well, it also makes a really pretty C sharp too.
It does. It really makes it sound nice. So there are two solutions to this, I think. Well, or three. You get a flute with a B to C sharp trill, or you learn how to coordinate those two, or when you're doing it, just trill the left index finger, leave your thumb down. It's not as good a sound, but it really is so much cleaner. So you might consider that as an option. So you leave your thumb down and you just trill the left index finger. So much cleaner. Again, the sound isn't as good, I agree, but it's so much cleaner.
Thank you, Chris. I never knew I had a C sharp trill key before.
But this is
Found
what it's
it.
for. So can you show us? So what it is, everybody has this key, which is a third way to play B flat. And there's another key that looks like that right next to it. And it opens a key back here between the thumb B flat and the trill keys. So there's an extra key back there. And that allows them to play that B to C sharp trill in this octave. But it's, clearly many people had trouble because they're willing to spend, somebody designed and people are willing to spend money for a key just to make that trill work. Okay, I don't want to spend too much more time on this. Let's just briefly go through the next one, which is measure 21. When you're trilling from F to G flat or F to F sharp, you just leave the F sharp key down while you trill the right index finger. So you just leave it down. Okay, then the next one, B to C sharp in the upper octave. Yay, we can all do this. It's the first trill key. You finger B and you use the first trill key, and that will get you B to C sharp in this octave. Okay, the next one, E to F sharp up here in this octave. The usual fingering is that you finger E and you trill the thumb. That's the usual fingering. It's not a lovely sounding trill. So there's another one that you can use, is that you finger A, put down the second trill key, the one closest to the E flat key, and then trill the A key. So I'm fingering A here. I've got my second trill key down, the one closest to E flat, and then I'm trilling the A key. And that will also give you an E to F sharp. It's more brilliant. So that can be an option. It's not as easy to get to. So sometimes if there's like an E flat before it or something, you just can't get there. But I like that one.
Chris, that's
Okay.
an awesome one. Thank you.
Isn't that awesome?
Yes, I've never done that, and gosh, that is wonderful. Thank you.
It's just so energetic and brilliant, and I mean you go, it's a happy trill, whereas the other one is like, it is what it is.
For the other more banal trill, I know, often just to keep intonation, when you play the high E, you lift your little finger for doing the trill. Do you have a preference as to what one would do if you use the more traditional fingering?
You have to check your tuner and find out what you think is going to work better. Everybody's instrument is a little better, but on high E, I don't have to do that on lifting the little finger. I don't have to do that on my C flute because it's fine. My E is fine, but I have to do that on my alto and on my bass. So, it varies from instrument to instrument. Okay, just so we can get to our tunes, I'm only going to do one more, which is the very last one down there at 28. Measure 28. Okay, so this is where the composer should be shot at sunrise for putting this trill in, because it's just not possible for one person to do this. So, but you see it in pieces because they think that any two notes could be trilled. So you have two options. One is that you play it an octave higher, which is you would use the second trill key. That's measure 24, right? That's C sharp. You would use the second trill key. Instead of playing it down here in this octave. Or the other option is, I know this is really funny, but it could be part of a comedy routine. You put down the low C sharp key, and the person next to you reaches over and trills your E flat key. I have also known people who will, if you have time before and after, you get a rubber band or something. Rubber bands, you don't leave it on for long because it tarnishes. You get a rubber band and you hold down that key, and you hold that key down. You have to put this on separately. You hold this key down right here, and then you control that and it works. But if you have notes before and after, it may not work at all. So there are 3 options for that absolutely absurd trill. We, as flute players, we're always trying to problem solve. Okay, we're going on to the art of the trill. Next page. Again, I'm trying to keep this to an hour. We may, if you have to leave and the hour is up and you have to leave, then okay, bye. Thank you very much. But if you can hang out and we're still going, that's fine too. All right, so the first example on the art of the trill, it's from a Handel sonata. We know in the Baroque period that you start the trills on the upper note on the beat. Upper note on the beat. And we really want to make it obvious that that upper note is starting the trill. It's a dissonance, and they liked that. They really wanted to hear. So it's not something you're sneaking by. You really want to hear the upper note. So I picked this one. There's 2 trills in it, but I picked this one because the A in the end of the first bar there is a A that we would, do I have to play that A again an octave higher? And the answer is yes. So you would start that G sharp trill on an A, make a big deal out of it, and then you're going to trill. You're probably going to start fairly slowly and get a little faster. And then when you get to the last measure, here's always the exception. If the upper note of the trill is the note before the trill, you do not repeat it. Okay, everybody play the handle. Quarter note equals 100. Okay, so Lucy, we're on, oh, she's connecting. I think she got out of her car and she got home. Hi, Lucy. Okay, so in the Baroque in general, we have a little bit more leeway with trills. When you're playing that appoggiatura, in other words, a non-chord tone, that's what an appoggiatura is, and we're playing it on the beat, if we have a slow movement, like the next line down, the Vivaldi, we want to start that trill fairly slowly and get gradually faster as we play, so that it keeps the trill interesting, right? We don't want to start off fast right off the bat. Okay, so this one, we're looking at the Vivaldi. We're going to start it on the D on the regular fingering. Do not start with the trill fingering. Start with the regular fingering. That appoggiatura will be long enough that we'll hear that really funky tone quality if you use the trill finger. So you would start with the regular D fingering, then go to C, then start trilling slowly and increase in speed. Okay, everybody try that one, Vivaldi. Okay, so the Baroque, again, there are some more options here in Baroque. Another option with trills is that we all know that when you stop a trill, you always end on the lower note of the trill. Always end on the lower note of the trill. No matter what style period you're in, you always end on the lower note of the trill. In the Baroque period, if you want to, you could actually, I'm looking at the Vivaldi again, you could actually end the trill on beat 2 with a C and as an eighth note, and then play B B. So D da 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 if you want to. Okay, everybody try that. Okay, So just in the Baroque period, you have a choice of, am I supposed to start on the upper note on the beat or not? And how long is that appoggiatura going to be? And that depends on the note value of the trill you're playing. And then am I going to decide, I'm probably going to get faster as I play this trill. I'm going to start a little bit slowly and then get faster. How much faster am I going to get? And that's going to depend on the speed of the piece in general. And then I have a choice of, am I going to stop the trill and play it for, you know, some regular note value, like an eighth note, before I actually go on? Am I actually going to stop that trill? All right, so going on to the Bach on measure 6, we have a D sharp to E trill. We have to start on E natural. We'll start with the regular fingering, then go to D sharp where the left hand index finger is up, and then we play E, okay? And then the one at the end of that bar, at the end of that line, you'll notice there's actually a diminuendo. Here is a situation in which I might actually want to slow my trill down as I get towards the end, because I'm getting softer. I'm actually getting softer during the trill. Again, these are all choices. They're all choices. I'm not saying you have to do this, you have to do that. These are just some options that you have. You talk it over with yourself. You talk it over with your teacher. You listen to famous people on YouTube. And you decide how you want to deal with a trill in the particular piece that you're working on. Okay, so everybody try that Bach, that whole line with those two trills. Okay, going on to Mozart. So there is a lot of controversy what to do about trills in the classical period. And this is not just among flute players, but among pianists and everybody else. And the question being, should there be an appoggiatura at the beginning of the trill or not? And some people feel very strongly that there should be. As we know, it's not like there were cut and dried divisions between the different musical styles. Everything was just slowly evolving, and it evolved at different rates in different countries. The person that I tend to look at the most for their editions is Trevor Y. He really lets you know what the original was. And you'll begin to realize how many editors have already made lots of decisions for you about what the notation should be. So again, I look at Trevor Y edition of things, and that helps me make an informed choice about what I want to do. Now, personally, I come down on the side that William Bennett uses, and that is you do start the trill on the upper note, but you don't make a big deal out of it. It's not like we really want that dissonance. You start on the upper note, but it's quick, and you just move off of it quickly. Not like the Baroque where you tend to hang out on it for a little while. Now, you don't have to do it because I said it. Again, you listen to other people's recordings, and again, there's lots of controversy. There is no right way. There's just what people think sounds better. And of course, better is so subjective. Okay, so here we are on this Mozart. On the second measure, there's a trill on a D. I would start on the E natural on the beat. It's not going to be long. And then I would start on the next one, the one at the end, you have to start on D. And I would suggest, so it's a C trill, I would suggest on the C immediately, the last note right before the trill, leave your right hand fingers down. Just leave your right hand fingers down, and then they'll be right there for that D. Okay, everybody try that Mozart. We're at measure 10. So Mozart has to be graceful. It has to be elegant. So you do whatever it takes for your trills to be elegant and graceful. And again, I recommend listening to, really famous people and how they play Mozart to decide what seems elegant and graceful to you. So we don't want a lot of dissonance, which is why I like William Bennett's solution to this problem. Some people think you should not have the appoggiatura at all, that you should start on the lower note. Some people think that the appoggiatura should be longer, just like in the Baroque. So we're sort of in the middle with William Bennett. I think it sounds really good. I think too much tension, dissonance, it doesn't quite work in Mozart. Okay, going down to measure 13. So, measure 13, this Mozart, this is G major concerto. Again, I look at Trevor Y, and then I can have a good idea of what was actually written. What did Mozart actually write? What were little tiny notes? What was actually going on? This is not a Trevor Y reproduction. But the thing that's interesting here is in the first measure, that G to A trill, there is indeed an A 16th note written there. There is not a line through it, which would indicate that it should be a grace note. So what is this? It's another appoggiatura. But in the next measure, there's a G to A trill, and there is no little extra note written in front. The consensus is that they're played the same way. That you start on the upper note on the beat. Okay, so we're going to get to play that in a minute. Looking on at measure 13, 14, 15, you'll notice that I put trill in parentheses. There is not a trill in the original over this note. But if you play it, you'll feel, oh, this needs a trill, because we're going to a D major cadence. It needs a trill. And yet there wasn't one written. So we know they didn't always get everything in there accurately. But if you think about how they had to print music back at this time, it was all movable type still. I mean, we didn't have a usual printing press, right? It was all little characters that they had to put into a grid and then run the pages. And music is much more complicated than a written language with only 26 letters in the English alphabet, but and a few exclamation points. But in music, there's a height thing, there's accents, there's dots, it would have been so labor intensive. You had a question, Noreen?
Yeah, just really quickly, based on what you said previously with Baroque and your approach on elegantly playing Mozart. So here you have a D and then you have the C sharp with the trill, which we're going to go ahead and include. So you're starting on the D, but it's very subtle because you're playing D the previous
right
beat.
You would start on the lower note. You'd start on C sharp. You'd go right to C sharp on the trill.
Got it.
You would not repeat the D. Okay, so then this next little section, you'll notice it's notated the exact same way. There's a C to D trill in measure 17 and 18. One of them has that little extra 16th note in front, and the other one doesn't. So, and again, that is original. So, but they're played the same. They're played the same. They're both with a very slight appoggiatura starting on the upper note. And you would start on the regular fingering. Don't start on the trill fingering. Start on the regular fingering, because we'll be able to hear that it just doesn't sound quite right. Okay, everybody play that. Mozart G major concerto. Okay, yes, Glauber?
How about the termination? We put a termination, right, in the Mozart. Ta-da, pa-da-da.
Right, I was just gonna, as soon as people were through, that's exactly what I was gonna say. So the other thing, as you're playing through that, it's like there should be a termination, as Glauber just said, which means on that C sharp to D trill, you'd play C sharp, B, C sharp, D. Da, ba, da, dum. If that's what you're talking about, right, Glauber? Yes. And the same thing on F sharp to G, but it was not written in the original. But that's sort of what we have all come to think. When you play it, you think, oh, this needs those little grace notes, the little termination. And again, but it wasn't written in the original. And yet, so there are things, there's a lot of confusion, especially in the Baroque and the classical, about exactly what do I do. And there's so many options, and you just have to decide which options you like. Okay, and again, listen to other famous people play. Who's the famous Baroque flutist? I can't come up with their name. But when you're doing something Baroque, you want to listen to people who specialize in Baroque and decide which you like. I'm sorry, somebody said?
I think it's Jennifer Grimm that you're talking about.
No. This is I think she's from the Netherlands.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But I'm not sure. Anyway, I'll come up with a name. But you want people who really work a lot in the Baroque period and listen to what they do and decide what you like and what you want to try, and then you do that.
Generally speaking, is your approach to Haydn similar to that of Mozart?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, generally. Okay, then we're going on to, I can't believe I can't come up with her name. I've heard her perform all of the Telemann fantasies on Baroque flute in one program. It was just
Janet C.
Well, I'm sorry?
Janet C.
No. You know, I'd have to look it up. I'll find it and I'll email it to you if I can't think of it. And it's a really common name. It's just, but then you hear her play and you go, how does she do that on Baroque flute? I mean, it's hard enough to do it on C flute. I'll come up with her name. Okay, the next one, the Grieg. Again, I'm trying to wrap this up. The Grieg. Once we get out of the classical period, trills start becoming much more predictable. We start on the lower note. There's still an issue of speed. Now, in this Grieg little excerpt that I have here, the trills would be fast immediately. There would not be any starting slow, getting faster thing. They'd be fast immediately. The first two are easy to get between. The next one's not so much. And unfortunately, it's sort of hard to get to my favorite E to F sharp fingering because we have to play a D sharp afterwards, and it's too hard to get there. But you have to know exactly where your fingers are going because there should be no lag time. It should be instantly fast on every note. I will suggest that on the D sharp and then the two grace notes at the end is that you, on the C sharp, the grace note, you leave your right hand fingers down so that they're there for the D sharp. So you're trilling D sharp to E, and then when you play the little grace notes, leave your fingers down on the C sharp. It just makes things a little bit faster. So how do you trill from D sharp to E? Right? You have your fingering E flat and you trill the middle finger. Is that right? Sorry. We're going to E natural. It's the, see, even I'm not perfect, I have to say. It's the fourth finger. The middle finger will get you to F sharp. The fourth finger gets you to E natural. Okay, Chaminade Concertino. No, I just can't. I blanked on her name. I'll look her up. My daughter just said, "Is it so and so?" I think she might be British. She's not American. Rachel Brown. Rachel Brown. Rachel Brown is her name. Incredible. Rachel Brown. I think she's British. She's the person. She is the go-to person. And when you meet her in person, she's like 5 feet tall. She looks totally normal. And she doesn't wear flashy clothes. And you hear her play and your jaw drops. Rachel Brown, that's her name. I knew it would come. It just took it a while to percolate. Okay, Chaminade Concertino. So we have this A to B trill here, and this is indeed one long trill. If they'd wanted 2 trills, they would have stopped the one on the half note and put TR again over the whole note. So it's one long trill. Make sure you start soft. And you're going to have to breathe in there somewhere to really make that double forte. You're going to have to figure out how you're going to do that. And on you're trilling F sharp to G, which is the thumb. And then the 2 little grace notes are E sharp, F sharp, and then up to an A. When you play the E sharp, just leave your F sharp finger down. You don't have to, do the flip-flop there. Just leave your F sharp finger down. But again, these are all very brilliant. And we have the grace notes. Now, again, trills, once we get out of the classical period, they write down exactly what they want. If they want little grace notes, the termination, then they'll put them in. You still have the option in a slow movement to do some development with the trill, where you start slowly and get faster. But they do write in all the grace notes, and we start on the lower note on the beat. Okay, so it's now an hour. If people have to go, we still have just a few things. We have maybe another 5 or 6 minutes. So we're now on the second page. And on the second page, so this is from the Schubert Variations. We're trilling E to F sharp, and notice the tempo. It's 8th note equals 80. This is from the big piano variation. So the piano has all these octave things, and they're like, and we're going, like that. So it's, but loud, but this is their movement. But it's, anyway, and it's forte. Then we have a C to D sharp trill, the 3rd one. So that's both trill keys. And again, I'd love to use my E natural to F sharp trill here. If you give yourself a little bit of space, you can then get to the G sharp afterwards in the first 2 instances. And then in the second instant, hopefully we can get to that F sharp from that. But again, most of the time, sometimes it's too awkward to get to. Everybody try that. Again, slow. It's about bum, 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 about that tempo. Okay, going on and looking at this next one from the Bame Concerto. There's, of course, a little story behind this. Many years ago, I played in an orchestra in Mexico, and we were a very busy group. We traveled a lot, but when we didn't have anything, then there wasn't a whole lot to do in this town, which was at 9,000 feet in elevation. It was quite up there. And so I decided I was going to learn this Bame Concerto. And I happened to have the music, so I decided to learn it. And in one of the movements, again, there's scads and scads of notes, but this was the hardest part. And this went on for 4 more measures after this, with no rest, just these little trills with turns. And it took me 6 months to be able to play this. But just these 8 bars here, just. Well, I can't remember how many it was. Anyway, it was long. It seemed really long. So it goes about. Okay, go ahead and try it.
Chris, do you do that like a mordant, or do you do a real trill for it?
I do a real trill.
A real trill. Okay, thank
Well, there are not many. It's not a mordant, though. One more than a mordant. Okay, and this is, if it had been an octave higher, it would have been easier to project. But no, it's down here. So anyway, this was the hardest part of this particular piece. And it, again, went for 4 more bars after this with no rests. And I mean, it took me 6 months to really be able to play that so that I can play that. No big deal. Because that's how you want to feel when you're playing something. I can play that. Okay, the last exercise, excerpt. This is from my favorite Karg Ehlert etude. And this is about 3/4 of the way through this particular etude. And in this etude, there are lots of 16th notes and 32nd notes and even 64th notes. And then all of a sudden, you come to this spot where you have these long trills. And it's just seems so out of character. So when we're playing this trill, we have to be very precise with the 16th note. And that's what I found to be the hardest part as I was playing this, to make that a true 16th note. So as I'm trilling, I'm thinking in my head, I'm thinking about 16th notes. I would tend to play it too short or too long, and it had to be a 16th note. So you're trilling, and there isn't any slack time in there where you can stop on the trill and then go on to the next thing. The trill has to continue right up until the instant you play the next note. And again, it just seemed so strange in the middle of this fast piece with all these notes to all of a sudden, okay, everybody try it. Okay, so even though this is a la Handel, we're not playing the upper note on the beat. Okay, anyway, I know we're a little over time. If you have to go, thank you very much for coming. If you want to stay and ask some questions, that's perfectly fine too. But thank you all for coming. This is Friday, right? Isn't it weird? We lose track of what day of the week it is. It's just the most bizarre time in the world. Okay, so if you have to go, thank you very much for coming. Any questions? So just hold up your hand, unmute yourself. Okay, go.
Okay, there we go. Sorry. Could you play the Bane Concerto in G?
Don't ask me to do that.
Oh,
It's
can't do it.
It's just such a finger twizzler. That's how it sounds. And you're just, I mean, your fingers are just working overtime.
I can't do it.
It's hard, I tell you. This was many years ago. I mean, I tried it before, and it doesn't sound flawless. I can tell you, it is not.
So you mentioned William Bennett.
Yeah.
My uncle Fred Fred Maroney was in the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra, and he met a lot of people, Galway, Trevor Y, and William Bennett. But is there a book on trills by Bennett or Y, or is there an exercise that we can download for different trills that come up?
I don't think so. There's thousands of trills. I mean, literally. And then if you were doing, well, not thousands because there are a limited number of notes, but there is a trill chart. I mean, we do have trill charts. I put one at the bottom of this page. There's a link, and there are lots of trill charts, but they don't really deal with speeding up the trill, starting slowly, speeding up, starting on the low note. Do you stop in the Baroque period? Can you stop before you actually get to the next note and play the lower note a little bit longer? I mean, there's nothing like that. That you have to learn from a teacher. And not every teacher is going to teach you the same.
Okay, thank you.
So there isn't a definitive trill, and if there were, everyone would be attacking it. So that's not